Here with Alex Holliman. My name is Nicola Telford. I am the founder of the Impact Marketing Club. We are a community of marketers, in-house agency and freelancers who are using their work for good and exploring what impact means to them. This is the first in a series of impact chats, we're calling them, where we're trying to sort of uncover the truth behind the impact journey, which is not just the announcements at the end of it, which is like, oh, we're amazing, well done us. So let's talk about the mistakes and all the messy stuff that happens along the way. So welcome, Alex. Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Give us an introduction? Huh?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Can you give us a bit of introduction? Tell us your story. Tell us about climbing trees. Tell us everything about you, briefly.
Briefly, everything. Yeah. So I'm Alex. I'm the founder and managing director of Climbing Trees. We're a search and social ads agency, and I think so. I fell into work in the advertising industry. So in the early 90s, working for a subsidiary of Saatchi & Saatchi's. So I used to plan and buy press, radio, and TV campaigns. Came out of London in 2001 to work for a startup which grew to 25 million turnover. I set up the online marketing division about 20 years ago. And I think when I started Climbing Trees, I went through I had a very comfortable, well-paid job. And I went through the existential angst of, can I get myself 5 days work? And that was the big dream. And so after about 5 months, I'd done it. And so I just sort of did that for a number of years. I had no big vision for the business. I had no major dreams of world domination or a really healthy exit or building a team out or anything. It was just literally, can I get 5 days work where I pick and choose the gigs and the clients that I'm working on? So I'm a technical founder, so I used to be really good at doing Google Ads and SEO.
Cool. And how big are you now? How big's your team?
So there are 15 of us now.
Amazing.
And I'm astounded by it, and it's I think the reason why it's growing so well at the moment is because I'm not involved in quite a lot of what's going on. So I've got a fantastic team who are sprinkling sort of magic dust everywhere, making everything awesome. So
that's amazing, and I've met some of your team through the club, which has been an honor. Frankie was one of our clinics, which was fun, and yeah, great gang. So congrats, even though you had no plans to do it, to grow to where you are now. So when did you start thinking about impact and how the impact your business was having and working with clients and on their impact and things? How did that journey start?
So there were a few embryonic things. I think I've always been a bit of a rebel and a bit of a contrarian and not wanted to be overly corporate. And so there were some emergent themes in the business. So I'd always done some giving back, but it was quite random, a little bit ad hoc. I can remember in about 2010, 11, something like that, we founded an organisation called Trees for Cities that plant trees in cities. And so having a business called Climbing Trees, in my genius marketing brain, there was a good affinity. So I did some work with them. And then we've always done proper discounted rates for charities as well. Mm-hmm. I hadn't really thought about it. It was just some stuff that sort of felt good to me personally. I sort of think, if you're getting on okay in life, it's good to be able to do something that's quite altruistic and give something back. But the starting point was during the pandemic, where everything started to come together. I think we went down in terms of our business turnover by 40% in 2 weeks. And I thought, if that carries on in another 2 weeks, there's pop, we've gone. And we sort of hit that 60% level and traded through. There was no new business. Wasn't dealing with any clients, and so the team were. And so I didn't really have anything to do. And so I think I feared for the business at that point, as I think a lot of business owners did. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I think I did what any reasonable person did. I sulked for a couple of weeks about the state of things. And then I'd spoken to some B Corps. So I'd spoken to Ryan and Steve, who own Jago. And they're one of the UK's only, I think they are the UK or the world's only B Corp personal branding agency. And then I had a good friend of mine, Nicola, a fantastic PR agency down in Newquay called Voice Communications. They were a B Corp. And I think there was an advocacy piece they did where they were almost, it was attractive how they spoke about business and what they were doing. It was attractive to me, and so they sort of drew me like to the path via that. And so I think the first thing that I probably did was look at the B impact assessment, and that then
Yep.
allowed me to get a proper health check of how poorly I'd set everything up in the business and how much better I needed to do everything.
Nice. And I mean, it's B Corp month starting yesterday, right? So
Yeah.
shout out to the B Corps. And was there like a specific, I mean, I know we have some sort of like pre-questions here, but I'm just gonna like dig in where we can. Was it the environmental stuff that drew you to it, or the social impact stuff, or like was there a specific sort of pillar that aligned with what you were wanting to do?
I think, being honest, I've got overly focused on the sustainability part. If I look at myself and think, I think that's a very comfortable place for me to speak from, and we have done a lot of work in that regard. I think as a straight white middle-aged man, talking about matters of raising others up and diversity and inclusion is not something which is a muscle I have historically flexed, and so that's something where I'm trying to lean into a lot more and actually do better. And I think as a business, we had a lot of improvement we needed to do. We had to change a lot of things, and the balance of the team is moving to a much better place when you look at it from a gender, sexuality, and ethnicity perspective. And I think what that allows us as a business to deliver for clients is solutions that are maybe a little bit more in tune with their markets versus just 4 or 5 years ago, we were a very sort of white team of men. And that wasn't an intentional thing. And so we've had to unpick all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, historically, marketing and advertising is, well, most industries, if you look back, have that demographic or have that, that sort of the face of those people. And if, you see things like you Google what a leader looks like, and it's mostly white men and things. So it's good to hear you talking about that sort of stuff. And I think there's good conversations happening around that at the moment. When you were first started then, so it sort of came kind of naturally, you started talking to some people that was quite attractive to you. What do you wish you'd known at the start?
I guess there's a balance. So I didn't, I think it was to move forward with confidence. That would have been the thing. So I've sort of, when I took on that first employee number one, I felt the responsibility in the sense of that responsibility. And I think as things have moved forward, I have grown with confidence. So I think there's a balance in terms of there's an egotism that people can have where everything's great and everything's fine and there's nothing wrong with my business. I think also there is a humility that you can have. But I think having that confidence of actually the fact that we are where we are today, we've got the turnover levels we have today, we're working with some of the sort of global brands that we are today. I wish I'd have known that at the beginning, because I think I could have then more meticulously thought about pretty much everything in the business. And a lot of it was I was busy working, just delivering client work. That was my job. I wasn't thinking about what bank we're working with and the balance of the team and what the team was going to look like. And I wasn't stepping into that leadership role where you can then think about, well, actually, this is the kind of business that I want to create.
Yeah. So creating a more sort of strategic approach to how you would look at this sort of stuff rather than, and this is a common problem, right? Like being in the weeds of the business and how do you like zoom out of that and look at the impact you're having as a team with your clients, like from every angle. And this topic is vast, right? So you can end up getting so stuck in so many different things, and actually taking that step out and being like, this is the impact we want to create. How do we move from here to here is tricky for a lot of people because they're also just trying to run their business.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it's like we made horrendous mistakes. So when I was about 14 or something, the bank that I joined, it was the Midland Bank before HSBC. They gave you a little school bag. They gave you a little dictionary. And so when I was setting up my business, I just thought, I'll go with this bank. And when you actually think about it and actually look at what different banks do and what they invest in and what they fund, and you think about, I want to be involved with that. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
We moved offices about 4 years ago, and I said to someone, "Can you sort out the electric?" And I ran over here to do something else, and they did, but it wasn't on renewable. And I just hadn't thought about stuff, and I made so many like really, you could almost call it lazily, or I just wasn't aware at the time. And so I think that
Yeah.
B impact assessment allowed me to go through with some degree of honesty and unpick that kind of stuff, so that actually from a foundational level we're a much better business, and that
Yeah.
goes through all of the 5 sort of pillars as well.
Yeah. And it starts with that knowledge, right? Of like, where do you start? Because I speak to people all the time that are like, oh my God, I see all these people doing all this stuff and they're doing impact reports and they're doing this stuff. And they're like, where do I start? And I think one example of a really good place to start is a B Corp impact assessment. And then there's other places as well. Like we talk about how you can get going in the club and things like that. But it's just starting somewhere and then having the confidence to just keep moving forward with it, I think is great. So you started talking about your mistakes. Give me the juicy ones. What are the biggest mistakes you've made over this journey?
Well, I think that you got the stuff like the bank, you got the stuff like the insurance. When I'd started the B impact assessment, we were 6 white men. And so from a diversity perspective, I went through a period of introspection and like soul searching, where I was thinking, am I a really like subconsciously biased individual, or is this just a weird thing? We're based out in North Essex. Essex is a very white county. North Essex is even whiter. And so I had to go through a big period of introspection. So we changed the branding of the business. And so to make it a bit less maybe mathematical and geeky, we've changed the language you use in job descriptions. We've changed the language we use in job descriptions. We've done that where we advertise. We've changed. We've just taken some office space in London so we can recruit from a wider, more sort of diverse pool. And I think then the balance of the team has shifted. So we're now 15. I think 33% women, 66% men. So that's moving in the right direction. I've asked the women in the business to set up a council so they meet and they set the agenda. I'm not privy to what they talk about and that kind of stuff. Hopefully they're not talking about what a bad boss I am. And what I want as the output of that is for them to come to me and say, well, actually, we would like to explore doing this or this, because I've done some reading around that subject in terms of the sort of gender balance. And what I wanted to do was, we've got some women in senior leadership positions in the business, and I wanted them to tell me what they want to do rather than for me to come in and blunder my way in and do something like daft, like paint the toilets pink or something just randomly that isn't going to make anyone feel better. So they've come to with a few suggestions which we're exploring, like improved parental pay, improved paternity leave or maternity leave. And then there was one other thing which escapes me, but they're sort of filtering some stuff through, because what I want to try and do is make sure that I give them a real voice within the business. So yeah.
Nice.
So I think that for me, it's just like sometimes I'd sort of look at how things were in the business, and I think I've always done my best. And I think the majority of people do, whether they're an impact-led business or a purpose-led business. There's a lot of people just doing their best.
Yeah.
What I was able to do was use that time in lockdown and the impact assessment to actually think about what I was doing for the first time, take pause, and then move forward with a degree of confidence and actually push on and try and push on in a better direction.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from you is like it's about opening up that like space to not be scared to say like we want to make some change, and like being there to listen to that and not be scared about it. And I think there's a real fear in this space of scrutiny, of we're not doing enough. I'm terrified about like communicating that I'm doing these things because we might fuck it up, and like what happens then? Do people see that we're fucking it up, and what does that mean for our business, and will our clients care, and all that sort of stuff? But actually having that honesty piece and the space to explore this stuff and listening to people is literally the first step of all of this stuff, I think. And it's like leading with that, like we're doing our best and we're trying to make things work, and we're not scared if we fuck it up because we're learning as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's right. I see so many businesses appear perfect from the outside.
Mm,
Um, what I know from running an agency and from I speak to a lot of other agency owners, there is a constant level of stress and pressure, and there's things that are going well and there's things that aren't going well, and there's gaskets that are blowing and there's problems that are occurring. Nothing's perfect. And so that authenticity to actually try and present that externally, I think is good. And I think I've got a genuine belief that there's so many problems in the world that government and big business can't address quick enough. And I don't believe that a funny little agency out in Essex is going to sort out all the world's problems, but I do believe we can do that. We can like that's what something we have power over. So we can try and conduct
yeah.
ourselves in the best way that we possibly can with our current knowledge and resources and team, and we can aim to do better and then try and talk about that and talk about some of the issues we've got and the problems and where we've made mistakes and things we need to do better. Because if I look to the world, there's so much change that needs to go on. If everyone's
Mm,
perfect and the world's screwed, excuse my language, if there's
don't worry, I just saw.
if there is and you know we face all these challenges, everyone's perfect and we face all these challenges, there's nothing to do. And so I think it's what I find more attractive is people talking about that kind of thing rather than presenting we are perfect, you're not, and you need to do better. I think that's quite a
Mhm.
to me, I find that quite
Toxic.
reductive and repellent.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it helps no one to. I mean, there's a healthy scrutiny that we can have of people, you know, like supporting people when they obviously make a mistake or like they've got something wrong, but public scrutiny and you know just shitting on people. Sorry, I excuse my language, is not helpful for anyone. Even like if they're either lacking knowledge or they're lacking something and know what like I mean, I run a community called the Impact Marketing Club. I never for a second think that I'm the one with the answers, but I think there's a real space to explore this stuff together, and creating a safer space to trip up along the way, but you've tried is better than yeah, this whole oh, everybody's perfect. And
And,
it's an
and,
interesting
and I think you know we became B Corp certified in the middle of last year, and what I almost think is that's the starting point now. That's not the end,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so we're thinking about more ways that we can actually drive impact in our local communities, raise others up that are less that need that sort of support. And I was
Mm,
thinking about what you said about the advertising industry being very a very white industry. I was speaking to there's a college in Brixton called I think it's called the College of Communication and Arts, and they take people from disadvantaged backgrounds and take them
mm,
through a sort of top tier like academic program and then introduce these people into the advertising industry. And so I've made this commitment to plant 1 million trees. We've planted 265,000 trees. I'm now a bit less in love with the idea of planting trees, but I've made the commitment to do it. So I think if you say you can do something, you need to do it. So we will fulfill that obligation. But there's a part of me which would like to deploy that capital into other things that could have impact elsewhere. But you know,
yeah.
sometimes you know you learn as you go along, don't you? So
Yeah, exactly. And I think like it's an interesting point actually, because there is a bit of a there's a bit of a like let's do the sexy popular thing, and I'm not saying that that was purely why you chose to do that, but there is an element of like we're going to put all our eggs in a basket because that's the thing that like we think is going to have the most impact right now, but giving yourself the space and flexibility to learn as you go along, and maybe like saving some of that capacity to deploy somewhere else, or capital or capacity or whatever you're sort of investing into it, to be able to like have different types of impact as they come along. Or so I don't know, would you if you were to advise people on like who are just starting out with this, they run a business as usual marketing agency or brand or something, they're thinking, okay, shit, we need to do something now, not only because consumers are demanding it, our clients are demanding it, or whomever else is demanding it, we're feeling under a bit of pressure, but also we realize that actually this is probably good for business and we care about it. What would you advise them to do? or where it's just
No,
whatever.
and I'll definitely come on to it. I think I think there is undoubtedly in popular culture there are themes or topics which are appealing, and I think
Yeah,
for business to community en masse to pivot to doing things with purpose, impact, and that kind of thing is going to be broadly a net positive. And I think it's as long as people are moving with authenticity, and so that's where you've got things like the Advertising Standards Authority have like really buttoned or tried to button down some of the language and how brands and businesses qualify what they're talking about when it comes to things like net zero and carbon neutral and what the difference is. Because I don't think the average person is that au fait with them. And I think
no,
I get confused with them, and I'm interested in this and I give a damn about it. So I think
yeah,
it's yeah, I think there's a I think, and if I think it's okay that if a market is shifting that way, for people to make profit, because I think then what you can do is then use that to look after the planet and look after the people. And I know, for
yeah,
example, as a result of us doing that, our staff are, I'm not a slave driving boss that are sending children up chimneys and people down mines and that kind of thing. Our team are exceptionally well looked after, and we provide them a very safe and stable environment within which they're employed. And I think that's a great thing to be able to do. In terms of the stuff that I think, if I was to advise anyone, I think it would be to speak to people. And
yeah,
so I think that was the thing that attracted me, to track down some people whose businesses you find interesting and say, well, can I spend half an hour talking to you about the sort of stuff that you've done and what you do? And I think that you get a lot of shared learnings from that. I think I tried to not spend too long talking. And so I think everything that we've done, we've tried to actually make some changes. So whether it's how we go to client meetings, we've set diversity targets, we've changed how we recruit, we've changed the energy supply to the office and all that stuff that I should have done so much better in the beginning. And so I think it's like make changes and do them quickly. I think I've always tried not to be, we're perfect. And so I think I'm more interested in, I know how great we are, right? I know the results we get from clients. I know the fantastic team that I've got. I know how we're in a very tough economic climate at the moment. We're doing great as a business. So we've got a lot to be grateful for. That sort of stuff, I'm not really that interested in talking about. What I'm more interested in talking about is the areas we need to do better, how we can improve, try and get help and inspiration from others so that we can carry on pushing forward, because we've just started. We've been in business, it'll be 13 years this year. I've been doing this impact part for just over 3 years. If we go on for another 13 years, that's going to be the majority of the business is having focus and purpose and impact, and that's what's more interesting to me. We've tried to be thorough, and I think I'm not the most polished of individuals, so I just try a bit to be authentically me and just move forward and, just sort of do your best.
Yeah, love it. I mean, we talked about this the other day before we came on this chat about how like the way you present yourself on like LinkedIn or like in your various channels, which I know some people just don't do. They don't present themselves at all. I am a little LinkedIn tart most of the time, but we were talking about how like there's no point in shouting all the time about how amazing we always are, and how actually there's actually more value in sharing the mess ups, or the like, we haven't quite got it right, but we're trying to work this out, or this is how we're going to approach this moving forward because we think this might be better. And I think there's more value to other people for that, and also there's more value in thinking about things like that rather than just being like, we're great, let's like carry on as we are. There's no room for improvement. Well done us.
Absolutely. And I think there is so I'm not on Facebook and Instagram. I think with Instagram, there was that sort of Instagramization of life where when you went on Instagram, you just saw everyone's best life, holidays, their cars, where they went, their partners, dressed up, going out. And I'd be looking at this stuff and I'd be sort of like overworking, tired, a little bit run down, sat on my sofa watching the box set or something like that. And so there's this disconnect between one's reality and then what they see on social media. And I think that Instagramization has bled somewhat into LinkedIn. And the people that I find most interesting are the ones that are human and can talk about a rounded set of subjects. Because if someone's just showing a picture of themselves in front of a Lamborghini or going onto a private jet or going into this restaurant, I just sort of think, I don't know, if you feel so good about yourself, why do you have to show me about all that stuff? Because I don't talk, I don't, I haven't got a Lamborghini, and I haven't got a private jet, and I don't really go to nice restaurants. So, but I wouldn't feel the need to get you to think well of me based on that sort of stuff. Does that make sense? It's more important that I earn people's trust as a genuine person that's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, so last question, and this one's for me. So I'm going to thank you in advance. Why should, and actually I want to sort of half answer it. Maybe I shouldn't half answer it first, but you sort of touched on this a little bit with the advice that you talked about. So I'll say this afterwards. But why should someone join the Impact Marketing Club? Do me a plug, Alex, please.
So I think to be where we are in Essex, there's not a lot of impact, people talking about impact. I always think of Essex like being something like Bavaria or Texas. Like we've got, people do all right. They've got a bit of money. They're quite brash. They're quite showy. They don't know what to do with the money, and they've got that many brains. And so Essex is a bit of a barren place when it comes to meeting and connecting with others that want to make impact and have purpose. And I'm trying to do a few bits and pieces around that. But I think, joining the club, seeing what other people are up to, seeing the content that's posted has been really, really helpful. And it's the sort of thing that you can soak up, and it's positive input that can give you a greater sort of focus on the sort of things that you can do.
Thank you. I'm going to chop that up and you're going to see it everywhere. I just think as well, I was thinking this when you were saying like your advice is to talk to people. This is kind of exactly the reason why this club started, was because I was speaking to a lot of people who were all in a similar situation of like, I don't really know where to start. I'm not sure what people are doing. I'd love to get under the hood of someone else's stuff. And I was like, well, here's some other people that are speaking about this. Like, speak to each other and like, let's collaborate on this and let's work out, because otherwise you end up not, sometimes wastage, because you're not like speaking to other people who have done something before, and maybe there's a way you could implement that yourself. But also there's a confidence in like collective action and collective community and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm very happy to have you in the club, and I appreciate the plug. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up? This is a whirlwind conversation. I've really enjoyed it, but anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think I've said everything that I could say.
Amazing. Any asks or anything? Do you want to shout out to like your team or anything?
Well, I guess we can do. Well, it's like if ever people want more if ever people want more visibility on Google, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, then we can help you.
Great. Well done. Good plug for yourself there. Thank you. And this will be available in the members area on the Impact Marketing Club and in our Slack. And great. We've got a couple more of these coming up over the next month. So thank you so much, Alex.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Nicola.